I first initially got involved in coaching back in the early 90s, there were some things that happened in different sports that became concerning, that you saw some behavior, and I wanted to be more of a positive influence. And for like myself, I'm a police officer as well, so someone that gives back and been engaged with my community, and I truly believe in giving back, and that was one way that I can make inroads in a multitude of different communities, because I didn't just coach here in Newmarket, I've coached in the GTHL and a lot of different communities, and it was just I find it more rewarding, I think, than sometimes the players do.
We were never, I think, even like a topic of discussion in that space, in that culture, right? It wasn't something that was meant for us. But when I look at it now and I think of it in my sense, for me as a hockey player, I think of it more as like the love of the game and the fandom and just the experience and a thrill of being on the ice and being able to share that with my community.
Didn't play any sport. I wasn't athletic. I just kind of chose it not randomly, but it was very unexpected, and I felt like the least likely person as a writer to ever play hockey, and I didn't expect to love it, and I did, and so I was just like, this makes no sense, and I thought, is this a betrayal of my younger self, or I was like, no, it's not, because I'm not participating in that culture that I didn't like.
I grew up in a small town in Quebec. At my high school, sports was actually compulsory. It was part of my education. So we would have like our school teams, but if you didn't make a school team, we would have intramurals. And that was co-ed, and it was inclusive, and it was all about just participating. That's another aspect that I really enjoy about team sports, is the idea of collaborating and working together.
I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and had normal, lower class upbringing, not a lot of money. My parents were both, came from families in Saskatchewan. My mom's family had a farm. But they left Regina, came to the big city in Winnipeg. But I grew up playing sports. I was in sports, and I excelled at sports, but as well as I did at sports, I was even better in the classroom. And so I skipped ahead in school. I played age-advanced hockey, and it all seemed from the outside to be a pretty good set of achievements happening. But it's funny, because what things look like from the outside aren't necessarily what they are on the inside. And so every story has a story. I'm Greg Gilhooly. I'm a retired corporate lawyer who now practices law in the field of not-for-profit amateur sport. My dad was a hockey player, not a professional hockey player, but hockey was his sport. And I think, I was a kid, born in 1964, so grew up in the 70s effectively. And if you were from a certain socioeconomic background in Western Canada and you were a boy, you played hockey. So it's important to know that I was a goaltender through most of my hockey playing days. But I originally started as a rather fleet-footed, which is funny when you look at me, given I'm 6'7" and big. But I was a fleet-footed hockey player. The person who ended up abusing me for a number of years was perhaps my biggest supporter in hockey. Hockey changed for me right then and there when I first met Graham James. And to say it's an incident, I think, is a bit of an understatement. It was 4 years of living hell. Graham's story has been told publicly any number of times, right? And so he's now somewhat infamous as hockey's most notorious serial sexual predator. The thing about Graham is he's utterly charming, just a magnificent guy when he wants to be, and then at the same time he's the devil incarnate. There was months, almost a year of grooming. Graham slowly entered into my life in a way where he started out as someone who wanted to be a friend and help me and be a mentor. But eventually I found that he was becoming the most important person in my life. He wasn't just being a supporter, he was becoming my life. And then I got to a point where Virtually anything I was doing, I was consulting with Graham, checking with Graham. And then when he finally decided to cross the line, I had no one to turn to but Graham, because he removed everyone from my life without me really knowing it. And that's when I knew I was in trouble. Well, I had a bit of a crisis because I was in an unhappy marriage, but I was trying to find meaning in life, outwardly successful, in a difficult marriage though, because obviously I was keeping secrets and not being fully able to explain why I was the way that I was, right? An incredible sense of self-sabotage throughout my entire life, and I managed to pull that off successfully in my marriage. But I had a daughter, and so I spent one night on the edge of a bridge, not the entire night, but a good chunk of the night. And the only thing that kept me from just pushing off, I sat on top of a rail, was thinking about my daughter.
In high school, the people who played hockey were they were like the popular jock crowd. They were aggressive. They bullied girls. The people that I was close to, we didn't like them. So growing up, it represented like a really negative, misogynistic, bullying kind of culture. I was 29 or 30. I was kind of depressed. I needed a change. And it was that marriage of creativity, performing arts, and hockey. And I learned about it from an acquaintance about 20 years ago, who just kind of casually mentioned, like, oh, I'm playing in this hockey tournament on the weekend, and then my band plays afterwards. It's like part of it. It's mandatory. You have to have an artistic contribution. And I was like, wait, what?
Back in 1999, well, technically maybe a few years later, it started with an exhibition game that I organized, and it just grew from there. I was working at Exclaim magazine, which is a national music magazine, and through that, my main job was actually doing circulation, so I was on the phone and communicating with people across the country all the time, and finding out other people that worked in the music business that enjoyed hockey as well, and set up an exhibition game with this record label out of Hamilton called Sonic Onion.
So this is my jersey from the team that I was captain of for a while, called the Screaming Onions. It's named after the Hamilton record label Sonic Onion. They were the sponsor. So that was the team that I was like on for the longest and most consistent.
We reward teams that we get an extra half point if you don't get any penalties in a game. We really try to encourage sportsmanship and safety, and we try to encourage people being social outside of the game as well. You're less likely to get angry at someone that you're playing against if you know them. And a good way for us to socialize is through the arts that we're involved with. In our Easter tournament, we have a cabaret in the evening, and teams get up on stage and perform for a half an hour.
It felt so empowering and so exhilarating. My expectations were the outcome was so different from what I expected that then I got very, very addicted and hooked and obsessed, and I was like playing 4 nights a week at certain points.
We collectively have a fair play committee, so if there is any issues, we have a fair play committee to deal with any issues that come up that are negative towards the safety and the culture that we're trying to keep and grow.
What I know now about hockey is that there's a really, really broad spectrum of what you can experience that is very, very different. There are pockets of very welcoming, open-minded, like-minded, community-based people playing hockey. It's not all the toxic garbage that you see.
My philosophy as a coach has definitely evolved over the years. If I looked at myself as a coach when I was a young man in my 20s, I was more of an authoritative kind of coach. I I'd say my speaking level was more speaking to my players, not with my players. And it's something that has evolved over time.
The work that we do at Hijabi Ballers is not done by us alone. It's done a lot in collaboration with a lot of partners giving us these donations and grants and funding, but also like speaking our name in other rooms that we're not in. It's advocating for us and making sure that we're seen and heard as well.
If I could say one thing, just remember what the sport was like when you played it when you're 8 years old, and that should be the ultimate goal of what you're organizing.
I don't believe that hockey culture is any more toxic than other culture can be, but hockey culture is toxic because all culture is still toxic. Is it as toxic as it used to be? No. But is it still toxic? Absolutely. We can always be better. Great thing, first off, is that we're not just talking about boys anymore or men, we're talking about girls and women. Because when I was a kid growing up, they actually invented a sport, ringette, to keep girls and women out of hockey. And so now, fast forward 50 years, the world's a much better place, right? And so I take heart in the fact that the sport can get better. Find the best about yourself in sport, and you will find the best in other people too. What happened to me, I'm an outlier, right? I saw the very worst. And if I can be an optimist, anybody can be an optimist.